safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Monday, May 13, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Teresa Ghilarducci, director of the Schwartz Center for Economic Policy Analysis at the New School, author of Work, Retire, Repeat: The Uncertainty of Retirement in the New Economy. Also on the program today, State Department issues a report waffling on whether Israel violated and is violating the Leahy Law. Blinken criticizes Israel's war effort and ends while Israel drives over 100,000 civilians from Rafah, now saying Palestinians need to re-evacuate from the north as well as evacuate from the south, leaving people wondering where they should go. Officer in the Pentagon resigns over the U.S.-Israel-Gaza policy. Two universities cancel speeches by the U.S. UN ambassador. A couple people walked out on Jerry Seinfeld.
Gosh, he's going to be aggrieved about that until his dying days.
Trump leads Biden in 5 of 6 swing states, according to a new New York Times poll.
Bad.
Michael Cohen testify in the Trump criminal trial today. And Senator Katie Britt cooks up a bill to create a federal pregnancy tracking database that she can observe from her kitchen. Not actually that last part. Voting starts today in Alabama. Mercedes plant unionization. Apple Store workers in Maryland vote to strike. And Congresswoman Nancy Mace having a legit meltdown. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. It is
Fun Day Monday.
Somebody just said the Majority Report. Did you get a neuro link? No, I did not. Just, beginning of the week, I'm just not in the habit. Get distracted by things in the middle of that intro. How was your weekend?
It was good. How was yours?
Fine.
Fine.
All right, let's get to it.
Don't care.
Let's get to it. That's enough of the chit chat. The report that we've been talking about that had been put off, at the end of last week, has been released. It really is a bunch of mumbo jumbo, and it's fascinating to see how sort of thinly disguised it's running interference for the Israeli government and the U.S. government's providing of weapons. But here is Blinken speaking with Margaret Brennan. And this is coming in the wake of reports from the Times of Israel that both the top Israeli generals and the head of Shin Bet are now either leaking or speaking to the press about what a disaster this Gaza excursion is turning into, and the fact that there does not appear to be any type of end game being articulated by Israeli leadership. No end game and no strategy. And so the Israeli army apparently now is simply on its own, continuing to fight and look to engage Hamas where they can find it. And the fighting is restarted in the north, I guess, because there is no plan. It's just been have the army run around Gaza, killing people. And so Blinken obviously must be aware of this. And for whatever reason, I don't think it's a coincidence that it is being introduced in the Israeli press a couple of days ago. And now Blinken is sort of talking in the same way.
About the way they're used. But here's something else that's critically important, Margaret. We believe two things. One, you have to have a clear, credible plan to protect civilians, which we haven't seen. Mm-hmm. Second, we also need to see a plan for what happens after this conflict in Gaza is over. And we still haven't seen that, because what are we seeing right now? We're seeing parts of Gaza that Israel has cleared of Hamas, where Hamas is coming back, right, including in the north, including in Khan Yunis. As we look at Rafah, they may go in and have some initial success, but potentially at an incredibly high cost to civilians, but one that is not durable, one that's not sustainable. And they will be left holding the bag on an enduring insurgency, because a lot of armed Hamas will be left, no matter what they do in Rafah. Or if they leave and get out of Gaza, as we believe they need to do, then you're going to have a vacuum, and a vacuum that's likely to be filled by chaos, by anarchy, and ultimately by Hamas again. Yeah. So we've been working for many weeks on developing credible plans for security, for governance, for rebuilding. We haven't seen that come from Israel. We've been working with Arab countries and others on that plan. Mm-hmm. We need to see that too. We have the same objective as Israel. We want to make sure that Hamas cannot govern Gaza again. We want to make sure it's demilitarized. We want to make sure that Israel gets its leaders. That's what we're determined to do. We have a different way, and we think a more effective, durable way of getting that done. We remain in conversation with Israel about exactly that.
Mr. Secretary, I just want to note that there is still I welcome his shift in tone because of what it may indicate behind the scenes. But there is no conversation about what Palestinians want for their future. We are working with other Arab nations. We're working with the Israeli government, the government that we will impose on the Palestinian people. And that's just taken for granted by Margaret Brennan and by most of the people in the press.
It really is shocking.
As we talk about democracy.
They don't even need to float the idea of and we're even thinking about maybe a commission of Palestinians.
Let's ask them.
But it is, he's contradicting himself just even in the context of that interview, because it's quite clear that Israel does not share the same goals, and I'm not even sure that I share the same goals that Blinken does. But this is not goal oriented.
Right.
This is
there is
perpetual.
A goal. There's a goal.
It is perpetual. It is to not have it end.
Yeah.
And to have it simply just create a sort of a perpetual motion machine in Gaza, where their military just keeps bouncing around in there and immiserating and flattening Gaza.
Process oriented, they call it.
And a way of justifying the cutoff of aid, because the aid situation is really desperate now.
I saw this morning that the hospitals could be shutting down, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, or within, quote, a few hours, because they have no fuel left.
No fuel. There's no water. Tomorrow on the program, Mohammed, who came on, I guess it was now about a month and a half ago,
right?
Who is Palestinian living in Belgium, I believe, raising money for his family. And about 3/4 of his family were able to escape to Egypt because of, frankly, in a large part, help of this audience. And he's going to come on to give us an update. I believe his brother and his father, maybe one other of the family, are still stuck in Rafah. They couldn't leave because the gate was closed. And he's been in touch, and I have like about 2 or 3 seconds of video of where they're living in a tent on the beach at the moment. But we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Meanwhile, Josh Paul, you remember, he is the former State Department official who had resigned over, and I think he was one of the first resignation.
Yeah.
Specifically, he worked in the part of the State Department that assessed whether weapons were being used by countries that we've sold them to in a way that is contrary to international or U.S. law. And he saw that there was no interest in the State Department to really make this assessment, at least in terms of like the leadership. Here he is reacting to the report that came out. And the report says something that I like. It's not unreasonable to say that Israel is in violation of U.S. or international law. So in other words, we're not willing to call you crazy if you really see what's going on. But that's about as far as we're going to go.
We can't, they didn't give specific instances because that would, and they also made the laughable claim that they're not blocking humanitarian aid, which we know is patently false because the U.S. had to airdrop aid in and build a port. But they're also, if they were to say specific instances, that would trigger the Leahy law. And then they would be openly violating international law if arms went to Israel.
So let's drag our feet on that.
Yeah, and it says it's likely they used U.S. supplied weapons in violation of international law. But go ahead.
I think it is a self-contradictory report in many ways. It does say that it is reasonable to assume that U.S. weapons have been used to commit violations of international humanitarian law, and yet it does not say that Israel has violated international humanitarian law. It does say that Israel has restricted humanitarian assistance into Gaza, and yet it says that currently Israel is not restricting U.S.-funded humanitarian assistance in Gaza, which is an absurd thing to say, given that the IDF is at this moment closing and has closed for several days the Rafah crossing point. So it is clear, I think, that the administration is doing this in order to continue the flow of arms. These are American weapons. Most of the bombs are American. Most of the artillery shells, the tank shells, a significant American role in terms of the armaments being used here. In many cases, striking targets in which there was no identified military objective.
All right, we'll talk a little more about this later in the program, and again, we'll have at least a secondhand account of what's happening in Rafah from Muhammad, whose his family is, or at least parts of his family, is still stuck there.
I do just think like we should mention the UNRWA decision and the way we went head over heels to have the entire Western world stop funding UNRWA based on just a suggestion. And the difference in what we demand for
Based
standard of evidence. Yeah, exactly.
Based on a lie that they said UNRWA was involved in October 7th on the day the ICJ said they were plausibly committing genocide.
Yep. In a moment, we're going to be talking to Teresa Ghilarducci. She's the director of the Schwartz Center for Economic Policy Analysis at the New School, author of Work, Retire, Repeat, The Uncertainty of Retirement in the New Economy. The Social Security Trustees report came out last week, and we thought it would be a good time to push back on all the ridiculousness about Social Security and also the problems that we have with retirement in this country. But first, a couple of words from our sponsors. This is a sponsor I use myself. They approached us years ago to advertise, and at the time I wasn't worried about it. I asked Michael if he wanted to do it. Michael was thinning a little bit up top, and Nutrafol was interested in sponsoring us. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, has over 1 million people seeing thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding. And I have been using it now for, I think, over a year. And I've seen a noticeable difference. I was feeling like I was getting a little thinning on this side.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm up there in terms of age. And I figured, why not get out ahead of it? Because it is, it's drug-free. It's physician-formulated. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are clinically tested to multi-target key root causes of thinning, including stress, nutrition, and lifestyle. And it doesn't have the side effects that the drug-based solutions have. And so I figured, why not? From Nutrafol's perspective, your hair is never just about your hair. That's why Nutrafol takes a whole body approach to hair health, addressing the problems inside to help hair grow on the outside, supporting your lifestyle, not just your hairstyle. Nutrafol has multiple formulas that are tailored to give your hair what it needs to grow throughout different stages, such as aging and parenting, as well as for different lifestyles, such as plant-based diets. With Nutrafol, building a hair growth routine is simple. You purchase online, no prescription or doctor's visit is required. Free shipping and automated deliveries ensure you'll never miss a day. You'll see results in 3 to 6 months. They test these formulations. So it's not just they test the ingredients, which a lot of places do. They actually test the formulations in clinical trials. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping. When you go to Nutrafol.com, enter the promo code TMR. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code TMR. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code TMR. I also use our next sponsor as well. Not as much as one would think, because I have a beard. But I still got to shave here and here and right here and right here. And if you don't like having a bunch of plastic, having to buy a bunch of plastic for your razor, if you don't like to be stuck in some type of subscription program that seems like, wait a second, I just bought into some type of proprietary system. If you want a beautiful shave, Henson Shaving. Henson Shaving is a family-owned aerospace parts manufacturer that has made parts for the International Space Station and the Mars rover, and they have taken that technology and precision engineering and have made you the best possible razor. Why is it the best possible razor? Well, it's not just the little ridges right here to evacuate like the shaving cream and whatnot. It is that it turns out when you get a bad shave, it's not because the razor is dull. Apparently people can sharpen razors. It is because that the blade sticks too far out from the razor and bounces like a diving board. So a bad shave isn't a blade problem, it's an extension problem. They use aerospace grade computer numerical control machines. Henson makes metal razors that extend just 0.0013 inches, which is less than the thickness of a human hair. It means a secure and stable blade with a vibration-free shave. And the thing about Henson Shaving that I'm quite convinced it's because they're Canadian. Sometimes the Canadians are a little bit just too earnest, is that they set out not to make the best razor business. In other words, one that locks you in with subscriptions that you have to keep buying every 6 months and whatnot. You forget that you have it, and then you break the razor. No. You buy this razor once. Reasonably priced, feels great in your hand. They have a couple different versions. And that's it. There is no proprietary blades. There is no planned obsolescence. It will cost you to shave for the rest of your life 3 to 5 years. $3 to $5 a year, I should say. $3 to $5 a year after you buy this razor, because it uses the old school dual edge blades. it's amazing. It's also an amazing gift because of that. And Father's Day is coming up soon. And frankly,
I got this for my dad last Father's Day, by the way. He loves it.
It's a great gift. And now, for our listeners, if you visit hensonshaving.com/majority, you pick the razor you want for you and use the code majority and put 2 years of blades into your basket, into your cart, and you'll get those blades for free. That's 100 free blades when you head to Henson, HENSON, shaving.com/majority. Use the code majority. Say goodbye to subscriptions and yes to razors that will last you a lifetime. Henson Shaving. Go ahead, check that out. We'll put the links in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. And quick break when we come back. Teresa Ghilarducci will be here to talk to us about work, retire, repeat. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Want to welcome to the program Teresa Ghilarducci. She's the director of the Schwartz Center for Economic Policy Analysis at the New School, author of Work, Retire, Repeat, The Uncertainty of Retirement and the New Economy. Teresa, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So the Social Security Trust Fund report was released, I guess, last week. We actually gained a year of solvency, in part because I think the economy has grown faster than we had anticipated. And I would imagine in part, too, because of COVID, we actually lost, hundreds of thousands of people who might otherwise have been getting Social Security benefits. And we also have more people employed and paying into the system. But putting that aside, I still hear all sorts of lies, misinformation about Social Security, and it drives me nuts. It has me in comment sections and Instagram stuff that I don't even want to talk about. But let's just start. To the extent that we do have a retirement crisis, let's talk about what that crisis is.
Yes, about Social Security. The big driver for Social Security is actually not longevity. That has already been built into the system. And COVID, as much as horrific as it was, did not move the needle that much. It has to do with numbers and just the magnitude. We lost a lot of people, but we have tens of millions of people who are now on Social Security now. What matters, and this actually answers your question, to Social Security, because it matters for society, is how well we employ workers while they're working. So if we have the kind of economy we've had in the past 2 years, where lower income people are getting most of the wage increases and there's full employment, then you can fund almost any retirement system. And the insecurity of our retirement system has basically come from 40 years of wage stagnation, a lot of instability in employment between the ages of 50 and 60. So the labor market is not as a secure a place as it needs to be to have a well-funded pension system. So if we get to the very basics, economic basis of why our economic system does not produce good retirement security, that's a good start. And then I'll just, one more beat, is that the design of the systems we have to get people to do a rather simple thing, save while they work and draw from that income while they're retired, is broken. That system of retirement savings is broken.
Okay, and we will get into that, because that's traditionally when Social Security was introduced, it was part of a three-legged stool. That was you'd have your pension, and back then it was a defined benefit pension, and we will talk about the difference between defined benefit and defined contribution. Your Social Security and your savings that you might have, and that was it. And I want to talk in a moment as like the percentage of people who are fully relying on one leg of that stool, essentially. But my understanding in terms of like Social Security, the big difference, the big challenge that we're facing is in 1980, I think it was like 83, or when there was the Greenspan Commission that basically expanded the trust fund, which is basically a slush fund in anticipation of the boomers generation being this big generation of potential retirees. At that time, we were Social Security tax was touching about 90% of the nation's aggregate income that was earned.
Yeah.
And because of income inequality, we now are only touching about 84%. I've seen, slightly just different numbers, but that dynamic is basically what we're facing, because the cutoff now is at about $168,000. And anything above that is not taxed by the system. It's sort of an odd thing to do, but, and so many, well, not so many, but there's enough people who have so much money that is on the other side of that $168,000. So you have one person who's making, $1 million, and that means that there's not 10 other people who are making $100,000, as it were.
That's right. That's right. A lot of money has escaped the Social Security revenue stream, since 1983. So in 1983, they raised the payroll tax, and it was going to be fine for the next 75 years if the trends that they assumed would happen. And they did not assume this great inequality of income. And so the income has grown for people who have incomes above the tax. Just to make this really concrete, I calculate every year, every New Year's, how many people have already paid their Social Security tax, have made $168,000 per minute, per second, per day. Elon Musk, if you count all of his earnings, earns that in about 7 seconds. So before he puts down his second glass to cheer in the new year, he's done. He's paid his Social Security tax. Another 200 people have already paid their tax by the time they wake up and nurse their New Year's Eve, hangover. So there are more and more billionaires, millionaires, very high-end people who look to the system as a $168,000 person. And if we raise that cap, I think that's what we're getting at, there's a lot more earnings and revenue we could get to the Social Security system. Making the Social Security system solvent is not actually a economic problem. To raise the tax on higher income people would not affect, according to economists, and I am one, economic innovation, economic activity, or economic growth. There could be a political problem, is that if we raise the tax but don't raise the benefits for higher income people, they may opt out of the system. But even if we raise the tax and actually increase their benefits, we still would be net positive. So that's in the cards for Social Security. I think what you're getting at, though, is the bigger problem is, what do we do with that second tier? That tier of savings that was supposed to come from work, from defined benefit plans that are these traditional plans that pay according to your years of service and your income, and the form that's replaced it, the 401k system, which is a defined contribution. You put in money in, and whatever you put in, you take out. Both those systems have failed. and fall way below certain systems, these similar systems in other countries. So we have not been doing it right according to our own standards and according to international standards.
Okay, and I want to get back to that second part, but just to just close out the question of Social Security.
Yep.
One of the proposals that we also hear is, in addition to sort of like, let's just get rid of the cap, is to have a donut hole. Now that donut hole would be, okay, let's say it's at $168,000, let's just call it $170,000 today is the thing. And then you wouldn't pay taxes on any wages that you earn from between 170 and to, I don't know, 250 or 400,000.
Yeah.
That's just simply a political thing, right? I mean, that's
Exactly.
just, okay. And because the real money is not even in between 170,000 and 400,000. It's in the, I don't know, thousands of people. It's not many more than that who are making, you know, over $1 million a year or something.
Or $168,000 a day, you know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's crazy money. And again, I mean, I think like you have the data that shows it's not going to impact the economy in any way. There may be some, I don't know, capital flight supposedly, but I'm not terribly concerned about that phenomena either. And you know, as they say, a rich man only buys one loaf of bread a day. And so, you know, Elon Musk has trouble figuring out what he's going to do with his money. And I have a good suggestion.
I think Elon Musk would not miss his money if he pays his Social Security tax on his salary, which is actually modest. It's under $1 million. So if he paid his taxes on his salary, which is just kind of technical, he wouldn't miss it. There's been no evidence that when wealthy, high-income people paid their Medicare tax throughout the whole year, that made them less loyal to Medicare. There's a lot of money in just raising the cap to $400,000 and then having people pay, lifting the cap, but also protecting people under $400,000. That brings in less money. Actually, making capital gains revenue, or the kinds of income that people like Musk really depend upon, taxing that a little bit for Social Security has an economic justification and a political justification. The economic justification is it won't affect economic activity. And Social Security always was meant to have general revenues come into it. So it doesn't violate the precepts or the mission of the system to have a little bit of money coming from general revenues. And also the amount needed would not affect economic ability. One more economic argument and political argument for doing that is that when Social Security started, it already had a debt because it was paying benefits to people that never paid in. So that's a legacy debt that has always been with the system. Those with legacy wealth have a claim to pay for those with legacy debt. We didn't know where we're going to be. Are we going to have rich parents or poor parents? We had to pay Social Security benefits out to those people who have no means. The people who are wealthy now got wealthy because of the system, mainly because there was a strong Social Security system. And so taxing a little bit to pay for that legacy debt also has precedent. So Social Security really is actually kind of easy. Within the system, we can fix the system, and we have another year to do it until 2026 to do it.
And the donut hole explanation, Sam, that Sam gave, does that make it less robust or rife for, I would say, cutting it into in the future? Because when you kind of overcomplicate these systems for political realities, it means that the next administration could change the goalposts, and then it almost opens it up for further cuts, frankly.
Yeah, Emma, I'm really glad you said that. I think the donut hole is a needless complication. I'm an economist, and you'll hear this from economists. What we want is a simple, broad base and a low tax. So I would be in favor of actually lifting the cap and keeping the payroll tax as low as possible. What I really like about our system is that the taxes are low. It's only 6.2% paid equally on the employer and the employee side. And what that means is that workers and employers have an incentive to stay in the system. When you get into crazy tax rates like 25% or 30% in Italy or all these other countries we look to because they have a big, generous safety net, you're looking at economies where a lot of people actually avoid paying taxes. And so on paper, it looks like that they have a big social welfare state and they have taxes to pay for it. In fact, so many people are cynical about paying the tax because it's so high that they escape it. So I'm in favor of keeping the tax low, broadening the base, and keeping it simple. There's a really good economic and political argument for keeping it simple.
All right, let's move on to the sort of the second part of that three-legged stool, and that and just to be clear, with defined contribution and defined benefit, it used to be we had defined benefit pensions, which meant you put in a certain amount and you're definitely going to get this amount back. Like, you know, if you're here for 25 years or 30 years and you retire, this is the amount that you're going to get in retirement. Defined contribution just says this is the amount that you're going to pay in, and what you're going to get out is really how lucky are you? Right.
Yeah, stock market. Right. The defined benefit system was advance funded. It was guaranteed by the employer, and the employer took the risk of whether or not the market would go up and down. But that was a good place to place that risk, because the employer had a much longer term view. The employer didn't turn 65 or have to take the money out on one date like an individual does. There's a whole bunch of lives that the employer is insuring. They can stagger that liability withdrawal rate. And when you can stagger your liability timing, that means you can have a much more diverse portfolio to back that particular kind of liability. So the liability is over many, many lives with very, very different kinds of risk. That means, and you pool the money, so you have a big fund. That means you have some muscle in negotiating lower fees, and you have the ability to have a diversified portfolio. And ever since that William Sharp won the Nobel Prize about the importance of diversification, we know what we already knew in our bones, that diversification means that you can get a much higher return for much less risk. An individual can't do that. They only have one life. They can never go back and correct the mistakes. They turn their retirement age, they turn only once on their retirement age, and they are taking all the risk, like people did in 2008, of being 58, losing your job at 58 in a worldwide recession means you can never catch up. And we are still seeing that cohort of people very insecure from their retirement with no fault of their own, because they couldn't work that extra 6 years like they thought they could. Their 401k turned into a 201k. That's not my line, but it's like the most visual thing of what can happen to you. Or as I was testifying with a Senate committee back in February, and there was a worker from the UAW sitting right beside me, and she said it well. She said, my great-grandmother and grandmother and mother had a defined benefit plan, and they're living well or lived well. They weren't rich, but they knew how much money there was going to come in no matter how long they lived. And they were secure. They weren't rich, but they were secure. Me, I've worked for Ford's for 16 years, and my pension depends upon whatever the stock market's going to do whenever I have to retire. I have a lot more risk, and I want a defined benefit plan.
And right now we have half of people who are 55 to 64 have no savings.
Yeah, exactly.
Going in. Now they have Social Security for the most part.
Yeah.
We have half of 65 and over living on $30,000 a year. Yeah. 1/4 of 65 and over living on $15,000 a year. I think about half the numbers, if I remember correctly, are living exclusively on Social Security.
Yep.
And then there's another 25% where basically Social Security is keeping them out of poverty. So 3/4 of American seniors are kept out of poverty essentially because of Social Security in one form or another. How extreme that poverty would be, would be, up for a slight debate, but technically poverty. And so we need at least one other leg on this, benefit. Like, before we get to like what the potential solutions are, let's talk a little bit about like the retirement age, because the other big talking point we hear is we're living a lot longer than we used to. Yeah. Which in fact we're starting to head in the wrong direction in terms of that. But even if we grant that the average is we have a longer life, that we have a longer time in retirement, et cetera, et cetera. Will you talk about what the reality is of that and how sort of limited that statement is?
Yeah, I actually wrote my book because of that statement. The sentence that goes like this: "We're all living longer, so we should work longer," is based mostly on hope and optimism and mainly ignorance. And so I interrogated the implications of that statement and just the veracity of that statement. And my book, really does take that statement seriously. And there is no evidence that we are all living longer. The average has gone up, but the average has hid very important differences. People who are likely not to have retirement savings are the ones that are going to be living the least, because the inequality of longevity and mortality has only gone up. Not only because of deaths of despair, the suicide, the opioid addictions that are affecting younger white men and women, that really brings down the average longevity, but because of the kinds of jobs that people in the lower 60% of the earnings distribution have. Jobs have not gotten any easier. I want to dispel that myth as well. And the people for whom the jobs have not gotten easier, their lives have not gotten longer. So we have a situation where we have the bottom 60% of our population having to work longer or look for work longer because they don't have the pensions, and dying sooner. So the upshot of that is an inequality of retirement time. There was an article in the New York Times today where the pictures say it all. And it's a picture of a mass of older people, just a whole bunch of over people. But some people are walled off from that mass of older people, and they're golfing and they're frolicking and they're in the swimming pool. But that tells it all, that there's an island of people who are living a retirement life, and the rest of us, especially the lower 60%, are having to work longer, or they're suffering what I call downward mobility. They were middle-class workers, and they are poor or near poor retirees. So the way to describe our retirement system is fragile and unequal.
Okay. And so a lot of times what I hear, in addition to that sort of like misunderstanding that, in fact, if you're a lawyer, if you're a podcast host, chances are that your longevity is going to be has increased dramatically relative to the podcast hosts, I guess, of 50 years ago, or the lawyers of 50 years ago. But it's just not the case if you're working, you're on your feet more, you're doing 60% of the population. But what's your response, again, on the Social Security end, and then we'll get to how we, fix, maybe come up with a solution for the pension situation, to people who say, well, let's means test it. Why is means testing a completely wasteful and useless idea in this instance?
Yeah. Let me just say, correct what I said simply. Almost everybody is living longer from 40 years ago, but the extra lives have not made up for the erosion of pensions. So they're not getting that extra life in terms of health or in extra retirement time. So, oh yeah, I just forgot your question. Tell me
it was about the idea of like, well, why don't we means test it? If
means testing.
If lawyers are living longer,
Yeah.
why don't we make them get less benefits or something?
Yeah. So a couple of reasons. One is political and the other is economic. If you means test a program, it becomes a program for the poor. And every program for the poor is a poor program. It doesn't have any political support, and it becomes filled with tests about whether or not you deserve it. And so it just erodes in terms of its quality and its reach. The other practical issue is that if you means test, you don't get that much money. What it is better to bring in to have universal programs, and then if you got lucky enough to be wealthy, you just tax people in a progressive income tax. You don't have to go to the program to make it even less regressive. Also, a lot of well-off people get a lot already from the system because they're living longer. They're the ones that get to claim their Social Security at 70. You get a big reward to claim at 70, and then you live a longer life to get that 35% boost in your benefits compared to people who have to claim at 62. So the system is already is already pretty good to the well-off. To make it less good by taxing their benefit would make them just much more resentful and not get that much benefit. The best thing to do is just to lift the cap while they're working, to pay a little bit more into Social Security, and then you've actually gotten more revenue without eroding the universality of the system.
Right. And if there's as opposed to clawing back any of those, you don't need to claw back the social, and it also would add just the expense in administering the program when you already have an IRS that basically functions as a means test for society, which is if you have high means, we take a little more from you. That's it.
Take a little more on a different system. In Finland, I hate to bring up Finland because who knows about Finland? It's in Scandinavia and that's kind of imagined area, but it's a capitalist society and people want to be rich. Their Social Security system has no means test and no earnings cap and no benefits cap. Rich people pay into the system and they get really, really wealthy benefits. And everyone loves their system. The Dutch system, much more like the United States in terms of culture and economic structure, they also have a system that gives higher benefits to high-income people, but then everybody pays in. It's a little bit like our car insurance. Like everybody pays in, and if you need to get car insurance, you don't get means tested about whether or not you get your car insurance test. All right. The Social Security really is insurance.
One other sort of, I guess, myth I had forgotten too about Social Security as to what you hear when they say like it's doomed and we need to privatize the whole system is the change in the ratio of retiree to workers, which has changed, but it completely discounts also the changes in productivity.
Exactly. You said it exactly right. The math about whether or not you can decide if a system is affordable or not is not the ratio of retirees to workers. That's not, the dependency ratio is crude and irrelevant. Because, for instance, sorry to interrupt my own self, but we had a very, very high dependency ratio when men went to work and women stayed home with a large number of children. The dependency ratio was quite high, but because the economy was booming and all those people that were in the labor force were working, you could afford a high dependency ratio. And we spent a lot on the kids. We have world-class universities that were free. I went to one, the University of California at Berkeley.
You're talking about in the 50s and the 60s.
In the 50s and 60s. So the point is that we had a booming economy. And I'll just go back to what you first said when you first had me on the show. What makes a pension system affordable is how healthy your economy is for the workers in prime age, from 25 to 62. If we had full employment and healthy wage increases for those people, we could afford a dignified retirement for people over 62 or whenever they get superannuated, because it's different for every person.
Okay, so with, I think, hopefully all of the myths about Social Security dispelled,
Okay.
and so that people can go out and when they see their favorite influencer make a snide remark about Social Security, tell them you don't know what you're talking about.
That's right.
But that the system was always designed to be one leg of a three-legged stool. It feels like the third leg, just normal savings, is non-existent on a day-to-day basis for the majority of Americans. I mean, and the idea of putting money aside into a 401k, which is again a defined contribution program, but not a defined benefit. It's basically like I'm putting my money on the horse races, and if number 5 comes in, I'm going to have a decent retirement. I'm not going to be a burden on my kids. I'm not going to have to eat cat food. But if it doesn't, then I'm not. That's not a way like a civilized society should run its retirement program. What is the best replacement for that second leg of pensions?
Well, it's a hybrid, between a DB and a DC. The DB had some flaws. One of them was that it's often connected to one employer. And if that employer went away or that sector was really hard hit, then nobody backstopped your plan. You had some insurance, but it wasn't perfect. Also, it wasn't universal. About half the workforce, a little bit more than that, were in the system, and a lot of people were left behind. So a lot of what's wrong with that system is that it's voluntary. The employers volunteer to provide it, and the workers volunteer to add it in. A better system is to combine the two, and that is to everybody who has a Social Security number and an account and accrediting and accredits should also have a pension, and that money and their money, a government match, should go in to build up a fund alongside a shored up Social Security system. So it's a private account, it's an individual account, but it doesn't replace the basics that we get from Social Security. But it has a couple of aspects to it that the current DB system and DC system doesn't have it. You put the money in, but you can't take it out for emergency funds. A big problem for the defined contribution system isn't just that it depends upon earnings along the way, but that in America, and it's unlike any other country, you can take it out before retirement. And that leakage, for all sorts of really good reasons, is what dooms many people's retirement account. So a better system, you put the money in, it doesn't come out until you retire, but it's invested in a pooled way. It's invested in a sensible way that that the individual worker is not at risk of making the wrong decision. And then it's very likely that when you retire, it's a big enough nest egg that you can smooth out any big changes like the financial crisis in 2008. So it actually smooths out the contributions, it smooths out the investments, and people can't take it out before they retire. Like, we can't borrow from our Social Security, and we can't take our credits out, before our retirement age. That's the secret to a good system, and that was the secret to the defined benefit system. You could never withdraw it when you were 50, for all these other purposes.
And I mean, that also raises, why do we have people having to withdraw that to send their kids to college or to pay for healthcare? But how is what you're describing different from, let's say, Social Security?
Yeah, the key difference is the way it's funded. Social Security is funded on a pay-as-you-go basis. The well-paid and fully employed workers pay into the system, and it goes right out the door that year to pay for current retirees. In our 401k, because I'm assuming you and Emma have a 401k or defined benefit system, you pay into the system and it's invested in private assets, and that builds over time. Emma, you're shaking your head. You have a 401k, yes?
Working on it. Working on it.
Okay, I saw that flicker. The 401k system isn't great, but it's better than nothing, Emma. And so you and everybody listening should max out to the 401k if you're lucky enough to have an employer with a 401k on offer. But economically, Sam, the Social Security is pay as you go, goes out the door. The private advanced funded system is invested in private assets and it grows. And the trick about that is that if you've paid into your private asset your whole life, at the end of your life, 70% of what you're spending as a retiree comes from those investment assets, not from you having to save. So if you don't, that's why for a young person like Emma, if you start saving now, you get the power of compound interest and you don't even really notice that you're not spending as much right now, because as it grows, you don't have to put as much in. If you wait until you're 50 and you want to be where you were if you started saving in your 20s, you have to put in half your salary to make up for what you would have had if you put in 4% of your salary in your 20s, or 8% in your 30s, or 12% in your 40s. That power of compound interest, anybody could do it on their computer, take a calculator, is what's behind that second tier, Sam. Is that if you advance fund and you do it early enough and you do it long enough, most of those earnings come from the market, not from your own reduction, your own austerity. And
my understanding is that in Congress, there is a version of that is being promoted, and it is bipartisan. And I would imagine it's because it has both those elements. One, that it's sort of locked away. It's not something that you have access to. Like theoretically right now, you could have an IRA in addition to a 401k or in lieu of. And I think you can take out from there. You'll have penalties and you're ruining your savings. But it has that same sort of quality of like, you can put it in an index fund, or I guess you could do other more creative things that I don't understand, but it would accrue over time. It would have compounding interest. So there's the compounding interest and the fact that it helps prop up the stock market, frankly, is what is appealing to conservatives. And the idea that you're protected, and it basically says, if you run into, issues later in life in terms of other expenses, society's going to have to figure out a way of providing for that rather than to steal it from your retirement.
Sam, you're right. The Republicans like it because everyone's is involved in the capitalist system. And the Democrats like it because if your parents stop dipping into their 401k to pay for your college education, if they can't do that, because I know parents here, they would do everything they could to get their kids to a college, especially middle-class parents. They would dip into their Social Security. They would sell their soul to the devil if they could. But since you can't dip into Social Security, or as far as I know, sell your soul to the devil and get money, dipping into your 401k is where people do it. And we don't have any political support to fund our public schools, like we did when I got to go to the University of California at Berkeley. That was my baby bond, was the promise that if I could get to college, then I would have a first-rate college education. I didn't need to have cash in order to go pay for a very high tuition. So the problem in our society is that we don't have full employment. For 40 years, ordinary workers didn't get a raise. And we've put so many costs on families that used to be paid for by society. That's what's eroded the pension system, not longer lives or even the demand for workers to have some time off at the end of a long working life.
What is the status of that retirement? Yes.
Yeah,
and
that bill.
You referred to it as the Gray New Deal. Why not Silver New Deal?
Silver. It would have been
Speaking
better.
as someone who is starting to silver, not so much gray.
Yeah, you're right. I should have. Gray, I kind of wanted to lift up Like, remember, black is beautiful, gray is beautiful. Kind of lift up what had been demeaned, and lift it up as like first rate. Silver had kind of a second rate aspect to it. I want to put gray up as lift rate. That's kind of the political aspect to it. So, I get it.
Fair.
But gray is beautiful. Gray is beautiful.
Reclaiming it.
Right. I'm going to own it, even though I don't, because I know that age discrimination is real,
Right.
especially lethal for older women. So, I'm maximizing and trying to do as best I can. So that's why I've aligned myself with Kevin Hassett, who was Trump's top economic advisor. We came together not on politics, like no way would we even be like in the same room, but we came together as economists wanting to have more security. He, because rich people are afraid of the pitchforks of people not being involved in the system, really revolting against the system, and me because everyone deserves a dignified retirement after a long time of work. So this bill is that structure. Everybody's opted into, everybody with Social Security number has a private account. And if you're low income, the government contributes 5% for every 3% that you put in. I know that lower income workers, though they live on the edge, want retirement because whenever they unionize and they're really low income, they vote to have their union and employers set aside some money for retirement. So the janitor, the home health care worker, they want security in their old age. They're completely financially literate, knowing they need to have it. They just need a platform to do it. That bill just got another Republican supporter because there's probably 35 Democratic senators who would support it. It's actually the Republican side that needs to be assured. So I think in this time, if this Congress wants to prove to the American people that they're worthy of having jobs, many of them do have gray hair, they do really well. And if they want to prove to the American people that they deserve their jobs, they actually may even pass something like this in an election year.
That would be impressive.
It would be impressive.
Yes.
Indeed. Teresa Ghilarducci, director of the Schwartz Center for Economic Policy Analysis at the New School. The book is Work, Retire, Repeat, The Uncertainty of Retirement in the New Economy. We'll put a link to that at majority.fm and in the podcast and YouTube description. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
It was
so
really
much.
great talking to you.
Yeah.
Emma, go save.
Okay. Thank you.
Sign up. It's
We're going
May.
to be doing a
You're right.
We're going to be doing a IRA and retirement forum at the Majority
Intervention.
Report offices. Yes, indeed.
We can do an intervention, bring in all the people like Bradley or Matt or everybody else into the room, and we'll do an intervention.
All right.
Oh, that
Well,
was
we may
making
be
the
in touch.
pants I needed
We may
for
be in
sure.
touch.
Yes.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, folks.
God, I gotta get on that. I just turned 30. What the hell?
Nice to have a guest leave you in an existential panic.
Oh my
I mean-
God.
I didn't start until I was around in it, but it was only because I had at that time a business manager.
Well,
and the guy,
I'll go get one
he
of
wasn't
those.
actually a business manager. He was an accountant. He was trying to make me his business. He wanted me to be my business. He wanted to be my business manager. And I'm like, you're just going to pay like the 7 bills I have?
Yeah,
and charge
right.
me a percentage? And then he
No, that
fired
could be
me.
helpful.
I just get like super anxious and clammy just even thinking about money, so I just am avoidant about it. But I gotta.
No.
Unless it's on a gambling website.
Oh well. Hey.
Well, that's why I keep sending like the compound interest thing. I am aware of only because of Instagram. So I keep sending it to Mila, trying to get her
Right.
to like save money.
Yeah.
And that's when I ran into that guy who was slagging Social Security on Instagram, and then I got forced to make a comment.
I remember getting the compound interest pitch when my mom had me open up a savings account in the grocery store in my hometown when I was like an 8th grader, and then I cleaned it out 3 years later to buy a car. So.
Well, we're going to head into the fun half and then roll right into our captured meeting on retirement in the office afterwards. Captive audience. Folks, just a reminder, it is your support that makes the show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free show free of commercials, you get the fun half. You can IM the show and more. Someone just IM'd. Emma's 401k is called DraftKings.
You haven't heard of that?
You
haven't heard of that firm?
You have that DraftKings plan where it's like with every bet, 3% of it's put aside for savings.
I mean, listen to the disclaimer. It says it's safe and secure.
That's what they tell me 40 times per commercial break.
Listen after the show for some more hotlines.
Folks, don't forget to sign up for the AM Quickie. It's a great way to stay atop the news. 5 minutes a day worth of reading, if that, and you know all the news stories. It's free 3 times a week. Check it out, amquickie.com. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee and hot chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off of that. And as always, you can check out the podcast descriptions for the advertising deals that we have on any given day. And we include those also in the AM Quickie, don't we? So check that out. Emma.
On ESPN, we will obviously be talking about the NBA and NHL playoffs so far. It's been a bit of a rough weekend at the office for the most part on that front, but we'll be breaking it all down. YouTube.com/ESPN show.
Matt, Left Reckoning.
Yeah, Left Reckoning, we had a Sunday show for patrons where we talked about Vivek really debasing himself to let a racist be a racist.
That was amazing.
Kathy Hochul talking about how black kids in the Bronx don't know the word computer and AI can teach them it. And also, edgelord in Texas is in a Republican primary and is in hot water because he made a offensive joke about veteran suicide that his Republican opponent is using against him. So it's kind of the risk of being a podcaster and content creator when you want to run for office. So check that out, patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
Take a quick break. Fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Oh, no.
Are you ready?
Who sent us
this? Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ Danner.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. See, white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males,
psych, fuck them.
Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on, fuck 'em, fuck 'em. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy.
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. It is the fun half. No one can know on the IM. Anyone know if one can unionize a workplace out of spite? I have worked for an office supply company for over a decade now. It rhymes with schmaples. When I first got hired, they made us watch a video about how unions were actually awful and how they hurt the employees. This was around the time of card check. I bring this up because at the end of the week, they'll be announcing that at the end of the month, they will be eliminating my position as well as 2 others, then creating a new position we are told can reapply, fight for. They've known for a bit now, but they've decided it needed to be kept secret because people at my level only found out because of Reddit and because of some of the better managers confirmed it to us. I'm not saying if the store was unionized, it would have stopped this from happening, but it probably would have prevented some of the more nonsense aspects of it from happening. That's probably true. I don't know why you wouldn't.
I mean, it doesn't matter why you do it. Out of spite is as good a reason as any.
Jeff from South Jersey, have you seen all that? Have you all seen that Daily Wire is attempting to make an adult cartoon? They threw a bunch of money at Adam Carolla. Megyn Kelly is in it, apparently. They've been plastering it on YouTube. Looks worse than Jerry Seinfeld's movie. Well, in fact, yes, we are aware of this. I saw this preview the other day. It premieres, I think, this Sunday, right?
Oh, pretty novel art style they got.
Now,
wow, yeah.
Oh, it already premiered.
Okay.
They're paying a lot of money for this, and they have some like legit actors in it who I think I have reason to believe that they didn't quite the actors are in it didn't quite understand what was getting into it, and now they're like having to do like publicity on things like the Megyn Kelly show and on the like all the right wing. But here's the interesting thing about this. This is a like a Family Guy mix with, like all the cartoons are like family oriented, except for like they didn't get that. They think it's, when it's around, like when it's Bob's Burgers, it's really just they're a tent pole for the family. And when it's Family Guy, it's really just a tent pole for the family.
Right.
And they tried to copy the formula, but didn't quite get it.
The animation looks like what? So that's just like King of the Hill.
Yeah. This looks like a neighbor of The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Yes! Headshot! Dad, my teammates can see your junk. You're welcome, ladies. First day of school means the bet is on. First one of us to get inside.
Suck, Mr. Butt Chump!
Ah, deal got it. Rule number 1, no phones in the wood shop. Fish it out after class.
I found some really great school uniform options to avoid misgendering.
Ooh, what about
here we go.
allergies? Maybe
The one joke.
days could be lactose intolerant.
No, we can't say intolerance. We have a zero tolerance policy for mentioning intolerance.
When I was a kid, men were men. Now everyone's wrapped up in feelings.
Real men stuff feelings down with red meat, cigarettes, and violence.
My name is Mr. Wolf. I solve problems.
You know what it takes? Balls. Eyeballs.
Who's gonna say that? We're too young.
Well, actually, I was going to say you're too fat. Keep my
my wife's name out of your damn mouth. You and
I remember that.
Girl Scout.
Well, topical reference there too. Will Smith.
The wine. The bottle.
Don't make this a prison hug.
Richard Bircham.
Bircham?
Bircham.
Mr. Bircham. Hey, Bircham.
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 Bircham! Watch Mr. Bircham, an all-new animated series from Daily Wire Plus.
Let the record show I'm a dick.
Premieres May 12th.
So there's one character so it's about a teacher?
Yeah, he's a teacher.
Shop teacher.
Shop teacher.
That's it. So it's just him at the school. There's no family, as you were saying earlier.
Well, I have a feeling that there is probably something.
Well, you see the person, they say pass the wine, and she says pass the bottle. That's like their dinner table. You know?
Yeah.
But you'll notice from this deadline announcement from November 30th of last year, who is missing from the cast of this now.
Who was...
What? They took out Candace Owens? You mean they canceled her
That's crazy.
from the actual cartoon? What?
Wow.
She had a role and everything.
Yep.
So they wrote her out. They erased her.
What happened to Trio? Is he still in there?
Yeah, I think so.
Trejo.
Oh, Riggle! Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
I heard Rob Riggle in the thing, and I was well, maybe.
I think
Maybe
I've heard.
She's still, Trejo's at the end of the trailer. He's still in there, and then
Jay
you can hear
Moore.
Rob Riggle as well, and maybe
Jay Moore and Riggle are the two people that I recognize as.
Kyle Dunnigan is also
And Patrick
a funny
Warburton,
comedian, but
too.
I think like all these, they they get paid to do a thing.
It's an
They
easy
don't
check,
really-
right?
Yeah. My guess is like you're gonna see how quickly it devolves into sort of just like a litany of sort of very narrow, sort of like can't read Dr. Seuss anymore.
there's gonna be like Dylan Mulvaney jokes about like Bud Light on there.
Also, I mean,
a year later.
I like the implicit thing here is that you can't be edgy on adult cartoons from a political perspective. Like I grew up with South Park. Family Guy had some pretty raunchy jokes in it.
Oh yeah, all of Adult Swim is
yes.
I mean, early Bob's Burgers episodes are crazy compared to how tame they are now.
Oh yeah.
But
originally the pilot, and this is why I thought that I was gonna have like basically full on retirement money.
Meal ticket.
In the pilot, Hugo is chasing them because he is under the impression that they are cannibals.
Right.
And that the pilot is called, I think, like Human Burgers. And I can't remember. We did the pilot and I'm like, this is going to be amazing. Because I'm like the reporter in The Incredible Hulk, where by the end of this like 5-year series or 4-year series or 3-year series of The Incredible Hulk, the reporter didn't even have to do anything. He just show up and like they take one shot of him at the end of the show and, to show that he's still there in pursuit of them. And I'm like, I'm going to show up. I'm going to have like 3 words an episode, but I'm going to be in every episode. It's going to maintain the tension of them being, cannibals. So Hugo thought that they were cannibals, and they were. In the pilot, they were actually cannibals.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then they were like, we like it, but not the actual cannibal part.
Turns out maybe that and perhaps you were one of the rough edges that needed to be sanded down.
Well, I will say in my own defense that the guy who was the head of the studios at the time really liked my character. But then the show, like within like 2 or 3 years, sort of like pivoted to more focus on the kids.
Well, right. Regardless I'm annoyed by the conceit that you can't be edgy on these kind of cartoon shows.
Well, that's what they say, but the bottom line is like all of these guys desperately wanted to be in Hollywood.
Totally.
And as much as they, it really is sort of just an interesting sort of like, almost intro psychology class to like, spend 15 minutes thinking about these people because they rail on Hollywood elite and Hollywood types and this and that, and they desperately wanted to be one. It was really always like, sort of just a high school dynamic for them in some weird way.
It really is. It really is.
Two videos people should check out. Jose at Jose Bird on YouTube. Jose, not a J, elsewhere, has two videos. Bent Key, the Daily Wire's kid streamer, and reviewing Lady Baller's Daily Wire's attempt at comedy that came out 5 and 3 months ago that really go deep into their earlier attempts to do, like, I can't remember what the famous kid show is now, like a blue chinchilla show. It's like news. What is it?
Bluey?
Bluey, yeah. They tried to rip that off pretty much entirely and it failed miserably. So this is probably another in the line of those.
Oh, Jose is great.
I am in total favor of the depletion of their capital.
I love it. And in this way.
Totally.
As opposed to like taking buses to like do racism rallies or something.
Exactly. Live out your fantasy. It's like it's almost like a Hollywood, like an adult Hollywood camp.
Right.
It's like where like I could see like I'm going to one of those like baseball camps and I'm gonna.
I want to do a basketball one.
Like I'm gonna play like a full on field and wear the uniform and with a bunch of other old guys who are like
and the big tournaments after 2 weeks and you'll be practicing the whole time.
That is definitely when Saul's a little bit older and I can go for an extended period of time. That's where I'll be, folks, at that camp. But for like Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring and those guys, it's all like, this is a way for us to live out our fantasies and do this show. And there you have it. Kelly Square Rotary. Alonzo Bodden is in the show too. Isn't he a regular on TYT?
I don't even know who that is. I'm sorry.
Charlie Jerk. This morning, the University of North Carolina Board of Trustees voted to redirect all $2.3 million in DEI office funding to campus police. Oh, Jesus. The UNC Board of Trustees is entirely selected by the Republican state legislature. Insane.
Yeah, I think more scrutiny on this thing called boards of trustees as governing structures of universities should happen, because it is just wild how it's them and funders that are having the conversation right now.
The Earl of Grey. My wife has me watching Sex and the City with her right now, and I was happily surprised to see a young Sam on a date with Miranda, our favorite cameo so far.
Well, you guys didn't date. I mean,
I wasn't on a date. I was her friend.
You were her friend. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to rewatch that. You didn't get it.
Yeah, you're not.
You didn't get it. It was too deep. Too deep.
The best part of that for me is that Sam is a diehard Knicks fan. This is bit.
You could have pulled a Ben Affleck.
They have tremendous range, though.
Did you know in Gone Girl, Ben Affleck was supposed to be wearing a Yankees cap, and he literally refused. He refused the director.
Well, that's the difference between being Ben Affleck and Sam
being
Seder.
you.
Yeah, that's the. Mine was just like, whatever.
Yeah, you wouldn't have had the balls to tell David Fincher no on that choice.
Who's David Fincher?
Well, the director of Gone
Fincher
Girl.
did Gone Girl?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well.
There's some question as to whether Donald Trump would be worse in this situation in regards to Israel. It's hard to know, and it's hard to know exactly what that would encompass. At this point, it is really, short of heading over there and putting on a uniform himself and firing the weapons. I'm not sure what
you want a Moab.
What Joe Biden could have done worse than he's done at this point, at least in this juncture of this. I do think that Donald Trump there's not sufficient discussion of what the implications of moving the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem did to the Israeli psyche in terms of what they were able to do and their level of confidence. But
let alone the Abraham Accords, headed off by his nepotism son-in-law, which Hamas has said was a part of why they attacked. And it was about basically normalizing relations between Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries and Israel without even dealing with the issue of the occupation in Palestine. And so they felt desperate.
And Biden also furthered it.
But Trump kicked it off.
100%.
And to your point, he has a constituency of Christian Zionists that he also has to be responsive of, irrespective of his personal instincts maybe on the issue too.
Here is Lindsey Graham, I think arguably a surrogate for Donald Trump. Ever since he found his phone, he changed his phone number after Donald Trump had announced what it was. Listen to what Lindsey Graham basically believes here.
And I guess the question is, why does Israel need the most massive bombs that can potentially level an entire block in order to wage this war? Why can't it be more precise?
Listen, here's what I would say about fighting an enemy who wants to kill you and your family. Why did we drop 2 bombs, nuclear bombs, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end a war that we couldn't afford to lose? You don't understand, apparently, what Israel is facing. They're facing 3 groups. Iran, who has received $80 billion in aid. When Trump left office, they were exporting 300 barrels of oil a day. Now they're at 1.3 million a day. They've been enriched by Biden. They're taking that money.
I just want to make something clear also. Donald Trump did everything he could to inhibit Iran. He unilaterally got out of the Iran nuclear deal, which basically, from Iran's perspective, was like all bets are off. The idea that somehow it's Joe Biden that is allowing for more Iran sales is absurd. He's the one who didn't get back into this deal. The idea of rolling in Iran into Hamas is also absurd. We know American intelligence has already said Iran knew none of, had no advance warning of this attack. They have, I'm sure that they have provided some military support or aid in the past and roughly ongoing to Hamas, but nothing. Hamas is in no way some type of like proxy for Iran, as much as they try and make it into it.
Million a day. They've been enriched by Biden. They're taking that money to kill all the Jews. So when we were faced with destruction as a nation after Pearl Harbor, fighting the Germans and the Japanese, we decided to end the war by bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki with nuclear weapons. That was the right decision. Give Israel the bombs they need to end the war they can't afford to lose and work with them to minimize casualties.
Senator, that military officials would argue that there has been so much technology since those bombs were dropped that for that very reason, that is why Israel and other developed countries can be more precise. But let me ask it this way, because...
All right, this is so bizarre. The idea that you're comparing Hamas, which at the beginning of this conflict was a 40,000 person military, with not terribly sophisticated weaponry at all.
No Air Force. Most of the bombs they have are
Navy.
Undeployed bombs dropped in Gaza. Many of the ones that they use because they have such little technology.
75 years ago, Japan had way more industrial capacity in a small part than Gaza
oh my God, not even close. Yeah. I mean, and this is not to minimize. Like, okay, yes, Hamas is sending, crude rockets that can have the ability to kill people in Israel. But the idea that Hamas represents the threat that Japan and or Germany and the access in World War II to the rest of the world is just, this is the delusion that you must have to be able to say these things. First off, There is no military analyst who says that they think that they can eliminate Hamas. You can diminish its capacity, but even after 6 months, they're fighting now again in northern Gaza. And there's no way to do what Israel wants to do. And the bottom line is, even the generals now in Israel going like, what are we doing here? We're just going in there to kill with no ends whatsoever. And so the idea that like they should be unshackled and can use a nuclear weapon if necessary is just simply absurd. It is absurd. The best thing America could do from Israel's perspective is to say no more. I mean, you need to say that Hamas is equivalent to one of the biggest military juggernauts the world has ever seen to even begin to attempt to justify what they're doing. And it's just like, it's a complete fiction.
Yeah.
As soon as you hear them compare Hamas to World War II Japan, you know this is exactly what, or Germany for that matter. You know they're having to smuggle in, like they're having to lie to justify this.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, it's insane. It's insane. But he's always been a bloodthirsty warmonger in this region in particular. He's dying for a broader conflict with Iran as well, Lindsey Graham.
100%.
This has been part of his whole career. So
he's seeing it fade now, and he's upset. Because frankly, I mean, Iran has been incredibly restrained during this.
yeah, I mean, and I will say this every time they invoke, the Holocaust to justify Israel's genocide. It is such like disgusting historical revisionism that leaves us more vulnerable because of we don't educate our population about what fascism is and what genocide and exterminations of people looks like. It leaves us much like this anti-vax crap completely decimated public health, and those perceptions leaving us more vulnerable to the next pandemic. As we do this revisionist history about the Holocaust, we're open and vulnerable to more fascism and genocide.
This clip is going around on Twitter, and it's worth listening. Back in 2002, I think this was the wake of the Second Intifada, Yasser Arafat, if I remember correctly, was living in Ramallah. And at one point, the Israelis came in and basically did a blockade, surrounded his compound. And I think this went on for like a month and a half. And I cannot remember how peacefully it ended, but I think Arafat made it out alive. And in the wake of that, I don't know exactly the date of this. This is in 2002. And I think it was over the summer that this happened. So this could have been a little bit in the fall. Here is Zbigniew. I never have been able to pronounce his name.
Mika's dad.
Brzezinski, exactly. Mika's dad.
Of Morning Joe.
And Brzezinski was Jimmy Carter's national security advisor. And here is what he said. He was, a former at this time. But this was like sort of the attitude and the ability. This is 2000. This is like now in 2002. Remember, this is in the run up to the Iraq War. And here is Brzezinski basically with at least a clear-eyed perspective on the relationship between the United States and Israel. And Israel has gotten significantly more right-wing since Sharon was the prime minister. Now, remember, too, Sharon essentially allowed for a massacre in southern Lebanon by the Christian Lebanese allies, I believe it was, went into a refugee camp, 2 refugee camps, and they massacred people. 10 years later, Sharon is prime minister.
Well, it's pretty abysmal and quite dangerous. First of all, Mr. Arafat may be killed. The report we just heard talked about the possibility of people being extracted from his office.
All right, pause it. And so this must have been in June of 2002, somewhere around then, during the siege on his compound.
Talked about the possibility of people being extracted from his office, from his immediate environment. There probably would be resistance to that. If he is killed, Mr. Sharon can then claim it was an accident. Secondly, the whole thing is degenerating into more widespread violence between the Palestinians and the Israelis, and that's deplorable. Thirdly, I think Israel's international position is very badly damaged. A country which started off as a symbol of recovery of the people who were greatly persecuted now looks like a country that's persecuting people, and that's very bad.
Do you think this could spin out of control?
Well, it could spin out of control, and in the meantime, the United States and Israel are increasingly isolated internationally. This could hurt our ability to conduct the war on terrorism. And last but not least, and this worries me a great deal, I think the Palestinians are being turned, largely by Mr. Sharon, into something like the Algerians. People absolutely determined to wage urban guerrilla warfare brutally, ruthlessly, at any cost, at enormous self-sacrifice. And the Israelis are becoming increasingly like the white supremacist South Africans, viewing the Palestinians as a lower form of life, not hesitating to kill a great many of them, and justifying this on the grounds that they are being the objects of terrorism, which is true. But the reactions are all out of proportion. And all of that, I think, is a very sad spectacle, and ultimately a spectacle of failure of American strategy.
Do you think this is going to work, this incursion by Sharon's government?
Well, this incursion by the Sharon government reminds me very much of Mr. Sharon's operation in Lebanon, in which he first of all misled his prime minister.
In
1982, by defining the objective in a rather different way from his real intention and actual conduct. It seems to me that when we look at this problem, we have to look at the totality of it. There's loss of human life. But you cannot define the loss of human life only in terms of the number of Israelis killed by brutal, savage, inexcusable Palestinian terror. And it does take place. The fact of the matter is that 3 times as many Palestinians have been killed. And a relatively small number of them were really militants. Most were civilians. Some hundreds were children. Now, this can be called collateral damage. Maybe it can even be ignored. But that, in a way, symbolizes the problem, that one side feels that only its victims are victims, and the other side feels the same way. Now, if we're going to move towards a solution of this problem, we have to think of it as a political problem which cannot be solved unilaterally by one side alone. The fact of the matter is that in the course of the last year, we have had Palestinian terrorism, but we have also had deliberate overreactions by Mr. Sharon, designed not to repress terrorism, but to destabilize the Palestinian Authority, to uproot the Oslo Agreement, which he has always denounced, in a manner which contributed to the climate that resulted in the killing of one of the 2 architects of the Oslo Agreement. I have in mind Prime Minister Rabin. And therefore, we're dealing here with a political strategy which has been designed for a full year to disrupt and undo the Oslo process. And unless the United States steps in, not only just with the procedural proposal of the Tenet plan and the semi-procedural proposal of the Mitchell plan, but with a concept and a vision of peace, somewhat along the lines that Henry outlined as the outcome, the situation is going to get worse and worse.
All right,
so that's it, and we don't need any more of that. I mean, that's basically, and where is this? Blinken, hinted at it this weekend. with Margaret Brennan, that we're working on a plan to come up with but I mean, this is just like, there needs to be more overt pressure. Now then, I think probably the U.S. government was willing to exert that pressure because they had another agenda. We're going to go and invade Iraq. And so we can't be messing around with this. We need to, Brzezinski there was like all in favor of the war on terror. It was like, this could interfere with our war on terror. And so the idea was like, put the Israelis on ice.
Our PR has to take precedence here.
Exactly.
Well, that's also, I think, part of what we've been observing with people in the Department of Defense, or whether it be people in the national security establishment, as opposed to Biden and Zionists who are more ideological, which is that this current approach to Israel, influenced by AIPAC, decades of pro-Israel lobbying, Kufi, whatever, is not rational or sustainable in the Middle East.
U.S.
in our
security
interests. So you see that break with that, and I feel like I'm repeating a lot of these points, but maybe people are hearing it for the first time. Just there was a marked shift in tone since, I don't know, December, from someone like Lloyd Austin versus Biden and Blinken, who are acting in more political manners. So it's not sustainable, but if the United States wants to maintain its hegemony, and I think that's what those folks are most interested in, it's just a clear-eyed view of it.
It's taking worldwide rationality backwards. When you have Zbigniew Brzezinski saying that, just matter-of-factly in a way that couldn't be said now today, but even like talks about the FLN, Battle for Algiers, a film that's in the Criterion Channel, that came out 60 years ago. Like, the lessons in there are like the same. Like, he gets credit for being based for saying that now because we're just so shocking to hear somebody put it like that. But that is just the understanding of colonial processes that were formed in the mid-20th century. And it's scary that we have to unearth this, like it's some sort of
exactly
like secret knowledge. But
you would
it's just matter of
expect the
fact.
professionals to be talking about this.
Maybe any like kids of that guy that are in media today that have the ear of the president. It'd be nice to reproduce some of that wisdom. But
or her husband, by the way, who tweeted out some bogus thing over the weekend about how the UN numbers have been adjusted and that the death toll in Gaza is less than what is being reported, which is an abject lie. They can't count all the missing limbs as human beings. It's just the people that were accounted for. So good to know that like there's some deranged genocide denialist Zionists that are apparently Biden's favorite program that he listens to in the morning.
The best thing, I think there was a clip of Brzezinski, the father, coming on to Morning Joe and basically saying, Joe, you don't know anything you're talking about. Embarrassing him.
Imagine your dad-in-law doing that to you on your Medium, and that's your job.
Well, I don't think that they were
at that time.
At that time, they were their involvement, I think, was secret.
Still weird.
Oh, you had that clip? Let's just do it for the fun of it. This is one of my. I remember this was so fun when this happened.
What do we do the next time Israel is attacked from an outside force? What do we do at that point?
That's the wrong question.
No, that's not the wrong question, because we never get the condemnation of Hamas or Hezbollah. It's always after Israel responds to defending itself.
No, it's not. The problem is that this conflict has lasted for years, and the United States has been largely passive. So the right question is not what do we do when things break down. The right question is what do we do to avoid a breakdown by being engaged seriously in the peace process. And for the last 8 years, we haven't been. And that's why we have the mess like we have right now in our hands.
You can't blame what is happening in Israel right now on the Bush administration.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
Well, look, Joe.
Let's go back to 2000, Dr. Brzezinski. You and I both know Bill Clinton gave Arafat and the Palestinians everything they could have wanted.
Such a stunningly superficial knowledge of what went on that it's almost embarrassing to listen to you. If you were to look more closely at what happened in the Clinton...
Oh, gosh. That makes me feel good that he'll always live with the knowledge that his father-in-law thought he was a dumbass.
Yep.
I love that look to the camera Mika does too when it starts getting real.
All right, let's just but let's hear his point about because a lot of people have that stunningly ignorant and superficial understanding of Oslo.
Just stunningly superficial knowledge of what went on that it's almost embarrassing to listen to you.
Oh, is it?
If you were to look more closely at what happened in the Clinton-Camp David discussions, you would know that what you have just said is absolutely wrong. There were all sorts of provisions and catches to the so-called proposal, and it wasn't rejected. The negotiations went on in Taba, and then there were elections in Israel, and Sharon came in, and everything got aborted. In the last 8 years, we had a policy in which we have proclaimed an interest in peace. Condi Rice has traveled 16 times in 21 months to the region, proclaiming, you must do this, you must do that, but the United States never exerted itself. So the issue that Obama faces, and that's a question that you raised, is, are we going to be sitting there issuing condemnations, whether it's of Hamas or Israel or anybody else, or are we going to be seriously engaged in the peace process? That is the question.
We have another block, and I'm very excited about that because I'm stunningly superficial. Chief, I look forward to you educating me and the rest of America. Hold on, the rest of America and the rest of the foreign policy community who have said time and again, Arafat walked away from the...
Before that music gets us,
yeah.
Yep. Very superficial. Host behind the desk.
That was awesome. I wonder if he knew at that point.
What, that he wanted to be with Mika?
That's great having a media like this.
I wonder if Brzezinski knew that they were dating at that point.
Oh, that would be great.
Man.
He may not have. Good for him passing away in 2017, so he didn't have to see how much that ignorance is spewing itself.
Yeah, it wasn't really open to learning, it turns out.
Scary Mountain Wizard. Don't feel bad, Emma. I'm 38. I don't have a 401k. Never had the opportunity to have one. Can't stand how everyone has to tiptoe with language when talking about Israel, always reinforcing their victim narrative and hurts any wider discussion.
Also, I have savings. I've been saving. I just don't have a 401k. I want people to know that. Okay, I'm not.
You get an
insane.
IRA. I don't know if it's a Roth IRA or a regular IRA for you, but
yes.
Hey, and then I do know this now. It is, you just get I got this from the index card book that a guy named Harold Pollack and he co-wrote it with Helene Olin, I want to say. Basically, you don't have to know how to do anything in the stock market. You just go to Fidelity, you buy one of their, I can't remember what it's called, their whole market fund, and then you just forget about it.
They've done like not leftists, but like actual economists have done studies, and like nobody beats a certain number of people will statistically beat the market just on random chance for like a series of years in a row, but nobody over a certain amount of time actually beats the market.
The people who beat the market are professionals at the very least. They do this on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But
that's
but an index fund. That's it. Hey, I'm Mark Crew. I was wondering if you could address the push in op-eds for Biden to be more centrist. We know this is a losing strategy anymore on the left. Here's a media link.
I'd prefer he'd be more centrist in that I wish he'd be less freaking right-wing these days, but...
I mean, yeah, those we have a conservative capitalist media, and they want their sort of agenda to be portrayed as the center.
Yeah.
This is amazing. You just sent me a link to something in Mediaite. It's by Jennifer Bowers-Bainey. I don't know who she is. But if in the second paragraph you write, Mark Penn worked for the Clintons from 1995 to 2008, is currently chairman of the Harris Poll, the chief executive of Stagwell, Inc. Biden's problem, he writes, is spending too much time appealing to the left wing of the Democratic Party. I'll tell you something. If you write anything and you've got to rely on Mark Penn in paragraph 2, completely worthless. Mark Penn is also advised Hillary Clinton. Mark Penn was Hillary Clinton's, I think, campaign manager for part of it, right? Absolute useless. Useless. And the Harris poll, go look at the quality of the Harris poll since Mark Penn has taken over. All the top pollsters say garbage. But this is what they do at this point, particularly when people start to think, oh, it's Biden might lose.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of articles from 2018 about him turning Trumpy.
Iowa Ryan, Lindsey Graham is literally scary. I think he wants to nuke Palestine. I was a waiter at Applebee's in 2008. I was bought into the office and given a couple $100. They said my 401 was closed, and 401k was closed, and not to ask any questions. Penn was chief strategist and pollster for Hillary in 2008. Okay, that's what it was.
Right.
She didn't even get out of the primary.
Oh, the chief strategist of putting out ads of Obama with his skin darkened. That's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
When they say nuke Gaza, they don't practically mean drop a nuclear weapon. It just means they have license to kill everyone they want.
Well, there have been analyses of like
You don't have to do it with nukes.
Yeah.
the number of bombs dropped. I don't want to butcher it, but there's analyses that say that it's equivalent to some of that kind of weaponry, even though it's more dispersed, but just in totality.
Golden Oyster Cult. I love this idea. You can't be politically incorrect in comedy now. Have these people watched any shows on FX like The League or It's Always Sunny? I mean, no, probably not.
The League sucked.
Zoe Punny. Hassan says he's in New York City to record podcasts. Will we be seeing him in studio this week? I did not know that.
I texted him this morning and he said he couldn't make it. I was like, you should come on by. But he said he's only in for a short amount of time.
Ghosted.
Pretty
Whoa.
insulting.
It is insulting. I had no idea. He could have texted. He could have.
He's been doing good coverage of the Kendrick Lamar Drake beef.
You go around to say I'm your uncle, and then you don't contact me when you come into
I
town.
mean,
It's
sometimes
pretty-
Well, isn't that family?
I go in and out of a town and don't say hi to my uncles.
All right, fair. That's fair. That's
There you
fair.
go.
It was my birthday on Saturday. Could I get a shofar? Also, funny, this is not Austin from PA. Funny Jordan Peterson story. My boss asked if I knew who he was, and I said yes. He is a bigot. My boss asked me why, and after I listened to all the shitty stuff he's done, she ended the conversation.
Gotta be careful.
I found out she asked because she went to see him last week. Oops.
Yeah, you gotta be a little more tactful.
Yeah.
Not bigot. I don't know. Because your boss is probably a Jordan Peterson fan.
Well, I mean, maybe I think like the fact that he thought that maybe it was a little bit of a mistake when we didn't allow women to be chattel to protect them from being raped by other men.
Should women be allowed to own businesses? What are the rules if women own businesses?
It's interesting that they'll put lipstick on when it's
They
a
wear
way
lipstick.
to say, think about my vagina.
You're doing the tax payroll and also wearing lipstick. What am I supposed to think?
I'm over here trying to do my work, and I'm too distracted.
Since when do you care what the stock boys think?
Where is he now? Is he still on Daily Wire?
I think so, but I think he's spiraling a little bit.
They
He got
almost-
officially reprimanded by the one sort of credibility organization he had.
I mean, they just stole his IP.
Am I not allowed to call myself a doctor anymore?
I care what the stock boys think, mainly, like almost exclusively.
More roast beef, please.
Sons of bitches.
Sons of bitches.
God.
Dirty sons of bitches. Toma Blink. Happy Fun Day Monday, folks. Here in Britain, the Labour Party has welcomed the defection of hardline Tory Member of Parliament Natalie El-Ficky. And the knots the Labour Party bigwigs are tying themselves into while trying to rationalize accepting El-Ficky is amazing. Also, I turned 29 on Saturday, just passed. Can I have a shofar? Indeed you can. Happy birthday. Kamala Fink. Jointberg, continuing 100-year history, everyone weighing in on Palestinian futures except for Palestinians. Sam CBD Seeds. Israel has done just about everything for the last 70 years to minimize Palestinians by trying to negotiate with anyone but Palestinians. Colleen from Connecticut. Not just no plan, but no plan to make a plan. DSA Aaron. Aaron Brown went over to the show today. It could have been an edgy 20 years ago. Went over the show. Oh, okay. Can't believe Hassan doesn't say hey to his real Uncle Sam. Hassan is a champagne socialist, big timing MR like this.
That's what we're saying.
Damn champagne socialists.
Now's the time, actually, when we know that he's getting on a plane. That's when we're going to slam him on the show.
Totally.
Has Hassan landed yet?
Eric from Michigan. Has anyone else used their Henson shaver with just water, or am I psycho? I seem to only cut myself with it when I'm using shaving cream or gel. I just use it with water.
I shave water only.
Really?
Miller time. Sam doubled down after Friday and began wearing blue shirts again. How long will this last? LOL.
I have this white shirt. It's new. And I was like, oh, should I wear it? Because maybe Sam and I will match. But I realized that you wear blue on Mondays.
Mondays I wear blue because
You're sad.
I've got multiple. I've got multiple of these. So if I need to wear another one later in the week, I can. This is the one with the rip, not the one with the blue spot, with the ink spot.
Yeah, show the rip.
I don't want to do that.
I see it.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do. Well, now I don't.
No, that's obviously a joke.
If we get to 70,000 followers on Twitch, Sam will show the rip.
That's right.
That's
if we get 70,000 followers on Twitch, I'm going to show the rip. Saul today said to me, he goes, your shirt's ripped. And I'm like, I know. And he goes, well, why are you wearing that? And I said, because people can't see it on camera.
People are saying rip and bio.
You could it could come out if you're just not careful. It's not that far down. I know where it is.
People know why I keep my arm down like this.
Mm-hmm. It's a big rip.
All right. Dragonfly. Much do rising wages factor into solvency? Well, big time. Not just rising wages, but rising wages on the low end of the income spectrum make a big difference in terms of solvency and Social Security.
And so I am. Sorry. Pistachio, how many followers? Until Sam shows whole.
Oh, God. What's that?
Move on.
War on Santa. All the fuss over RFK's brainworm is bearing the lead. He also had second neurological condition, mercury poisoning. How is it that a man supposedly steeped in the nitty-gritty of cutting-edge vaccine research, the presence of mercury in the vaccine preservative thimerosal, and the profound dangers of mercury generally was so unaware of the widespread knowledge in science and food safety circles that his twice-a-day tuna fish sandwich might subject him to mercury poisoning? It's absolutely bizarre. He really liked tuna fish. Kowalski from Nebraska. I got interviewed a couple of times for my campaign and mentioned Social Security as a major issue, and for some reason the subject never got aired after it was edited for broadcast. Maybe Sinclair doesn't want to talk about it, or they think immigration is a more impactful issue for viewers.
I bet you that's true. Or at least the one they want to emphasize.
A month before the atomic bombing at Hiroshima, Japan had 5 million-man army rampaging on the mainland of Asia that was murdering over 300 civilians per hour, and had been doing this for about 7 straight years. I would say the Japanese killing of over 200,000 civilians per month, not even including the military casualties, was probably a bit more of an issue than whatever Hamas is capable of. Not only that, Japan attacked the United States without a declaration of war, and we are still negotiated a surrender. That surrender included the reconstruction of Japan as well as self-rule. Zener, Kowalski for Senate. My partner and myself have no Democratic candidate in the primary to run against Deb Fischer in November, so we both wrote in Aaron. Yay, here's a link to a news story about the race. Interview. Did you get that? Didn't I send it? No, Kowalski's thing?
Oh, yeah.
Do we have the video? Yeah, let's see this. This is Kowalski, folks. Interview with Kowalski here.
Omaha's news leader, chronicling the stories and people making a difference in our community. This is KETV Newswatch 7's Chronicle.
No,
Thank you for joining us
ahead,
this
right?
morning.
Yeah, I
I'm
know
Bill
we don't need to see
Shammer.
all.
It's almost time to exercise.
All right.
Right, but we'll just drag it along. You'll be able to see it. All right. We'll find it. We'll find it.
Kowalski's looking very different these days. Chris Burdick. The expression on Emma's face at the mention of Finland was priceless.
Well, it just was funny because my grandpa, we married my Finnish grandma. He was a bit of a socialist, and he used to always talk about, Finland's systems and how robust they are and how it should be like that in America. So it was more reminiscing on family
The
stuff.
Finnish pride.
Yeah.
Hey, shout out to Emma for the great job she did on this weekend on Matt Lieb's Bad Hasbro show. People should check it out. Yeah, why didn't you miss
I
it?
forgot. I'm sorry. I had such a great time. Really cathartic and fun to laugh. I deem myself the most moral Gentile on the Most Moral podcast. They were the Most Moral podcast hosts, obviously. So I had a great time. It was pretty fun. Check it out, Bad Hasbro, and also Matt Lieb, just supportive husband of our dear friend and also our friend Francesca, and he's been doing great work over there.
Okay, here is now Aaron Kowalski running for Senate, U.S. Senate in Nebraska.
About agriculture is Aaron Kowalski, a farmer and rancher from east of Grand Island.
If you want somebody to, get dirty, I'm willing to do that because, well, I'm a farmer and we're not afraid of the mud.
Politically, Kowalski describes himself as a pragmatist.
I promise to break the status quo. I do not like this neoliberal, neocon, hegemonic political system that we live in.
And his main campaign policy is what he calls the rural revolution.
One of the policies I want to aim for is a 21st century Homestead Act. I believe that if we were to build houses as a nation, we should focus that construction in our small towns.
With his opponent being very focused on the situation at the border, Kowalski's got some thoughts too. His solution is to improve the country's visa program.
It means they can purchase insurance. They can go to the authorities if there's a problem. We'll have a record of them. They can't illegally vote. We'll have the records to prove that they're not citizens. And we need to go from there.
Kowalski says it's time for not just new leaders, but new ideas in Congress.
Right now, we have opportunities that our current leaders just cannot see because they are blind to what the common person is going through.
I would vote for that guy.
Yeah.
Seems great.
It's amazing. That's his he knows exactly his audience too. He's phrasing it in just the right way.
2 kids in a trench coat. I recently joined the plumbers union and just crushed my first semester code final, but our union's pension trustees made a unilateral decision to change our pension from a defined benefit plan to a variable benefit plan, so our payouts are now based on both worker contributions and fund gains in the market. Ugh. Sheen, can you ask Teresa the interest of our mandatory deduction? I don't know what that means. Vatov, wait. If we increase our memberships, does Emma get her 401k? Help Emma get her 401k and subscribe. We do not offer a 401k plan here at the Majority Report. We stop at half insurance. Militant apathy. All of Sam's chakra are glowing right now with this interview. All he needs is postal banking to come up and he'll reach nirvana. Dizzle McFizzle. Sam Silver Fox Cedar is the reason why I became a member to the Majority Report. Gray Fox. 401 compounded. Brilliant interview, Sam. The propaganda around 401k right wing is hollow, and get someone to talk about it in detail was needed. But I hope we're not going to ignore the absolute hypocrisy and shamelessness that you show by literally not providing 401k for your employees. Sick. Do you pay equal wages amongst 4 of you there too, or is it just convenient hypocrisy at play? Grow a backbone.
A backbone to who?
If your income is untaxed, Worcester Don Draper. If your income is Majority Report open enrollment period for 401k SEP IRA begins now. I'm not even sure I know what a SEP IRA is, but if your income is untaxed, your employer doesn't offer a 401k, you are an independent contractor, consider a SEP IRA. We are not contractors here. Everybody's payroll, though. It defers the same way a 401k does, so you can get compounding interest on 100% of your earnings. I don't know what a SEP IRA is. We should do something like where we look at like what is a Roth IRA, maybe. I don't know. But that's all.
Yeah, and I don't even know
personal.
the difference between a Roth and a regular IRA.
I'll explain it to you later. No, I'm joking. I have no idea.
The whole thing makes me so anxious.
Exactly.
No, we got to do that, though.
I know.
We should have trifold tops. It makes me happy knowing my membership could get going to get Sam some clothes that aren't ready for the dumpster. Callie in Mac. Happy MR Monday. I was wondering if Emma listened to the recent Chapo episode about sports gambling, and if so, what are her thoughts?
No, I should listen to it. I've basically like Matt has won this conversation that we've had over the years about sports gambling. I've kind of stopped like a good amount. Like I don't like it's oversaturated. I find enjoyment in watching specifically playoff games without having any rooting interest, even if it's just like $20. And I do think it's a bit gross how it's completely overtaken the entire sport at this point. And there's no real strict guidelines, and they're scapegoating players for making wagers as the rest of the people at the top are getting richer and richer. And it's going to be a problem, I think, once maybe there's a bigger scandal and Congress may have to get involved in regulating it, because there will be a situation where someone's throwing a game or something like that to get a payout from DraftKings, especially if you're on like, a running back and you're making your body's getting bludgeoned and you're a fifth round draft pick, but you're starting and you're making $500,000 a year for a short period of time. People are going to look to maximize that.
The Black Sox thing that happened 100 years ago didn't happen because they were bad people and they had worse morality than people do now. It's because this sort of thing and the basic speculation off of stuff like that can be influenced in negative ways is just not a good recipe.
It's not a good and last thing on that, it's not a good recipe either because New York doesn't allow it, but some other states allow you to bet on things like where a player's going to get drafted in the NFL draft, and you could easily have the insider knowledge to just like completely rig it, and there's no regulation.
And that's who I think is really pushing for legalizing all this stuff is people who want that have inside info and know that they can make
and
money
that
on this
moves
stuff.
the lines though, and so the average person is just is completely obviously not benefited in even more ways than casinos typically do.
Okay, I'm getting conflicting things here. On Roth, you pay taxes on the money now and don't have to pay when you withdraw the money. Regular IRA taxes are deferred now, and you have to pay taxes when you withdraw the money. But Miller Time says the money's taxed at the end when you eventually pull your money from your IRA for your retirement. Oh, that's a Roth IRA.
Yeah, I know. I knew. Now I remember that thing. Someone told me that before.
Right. There it is. We do not need more financial advice now at the moment, but thank you.
Yeah, it's stressful.
Scott 314, can I get a shofar for turning 35 today? Bill left his best. Keep up the good coverage.
It's a good age.
Donald Trump was out in front of, he's complaining again about his crowd size.
The courthouse crowd size?
Well, he's talking about he did let's start with the New Jersey rally, actually. Here is Donald Trump at a rally in New Jersey. The guy's got his own plane. Isn't he he's living in New Jersey right now, isn't he?
Yeah, basically. Well, probably at Mar-a-Lago for 6 months and one day out of the year, like a lot of these.
But he's at the trial, right? But he's at the trial right now, so he's staying in New York. I mean, he's got his own plane. He could take a trip for a couple hours and come back, but I guess he did the rally in New Jersey. Here he is. We'll do that afterwards. Here he is praising the serial killer. Now, to be fair, it's a fictional serial killer, but even still, it's not like there were redeeming aspects of a serial killer in this thing. I mean, well acted.
Says you.
Well acted.
From Asia, from all over the world, They're emptying out their jails into the United States. They're emptying out their mental institutions into the United States, our beautiful country. And now the prison populations all over the world are down. They don't want to report that. The mental institution population is down because they're taking people from insane asylums and from mental institution. You know what the difference is, right? An insane asylum is a mental institution on steroids. Silence of the Lambs. Has anyone ever seen a Silence of the Lambs? The late, great Hannibal Lecter. He's a wonderful man. He oftentimes would have a friend for dinner. Remember the last scene? Excuse me, I'm about to have a friend for dinner. As this poor doctor walked by. I'm about to have a friend for dinner, but Hannibal Lecter. Congratulations, the late, great Hannibal Lecter. We have people that are being released into our country that we don't want in our country, and they're coming in totally unchecked, totally unvetted, and we can't let this happen.
Wait, what? Just gonna take a little tangent to talk about how great that movie was.
No. Not how great that movie was. How late and great the Hannibal Lecter, the guy eating the prison
lost him
guard
too
is.
soon.
You want your serial killers to have a sense of humor. That's why I like that movie. He was funny about it.
Exactly, look.
He killed, he ate them, and he was funny.
Had a sense of a line about it.
I don't.
Saying congratulations for what?
Late great.
Late great.
The late great Nosferatu.
Does he die at the end of that? No, he
everybody's-
doesn't. 'cause
Everybody's
there's a-
IMing saying that he's not dead. He's still alive.
Anthony Hopkins is still
Canon.
alive, as was the character of Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, but the movie ended.
But I stopped watching the movie, so he's dead. He's dead to me.
I don't have object permanence.
It was great.
I mean, what are they doing? Another one?
When the movie's over, everyone's not there anymore.
There you go.
The late great The Fly.
What's
The late, great
amazing is he
E.T..
got on some type of weird jag in that moment.
I think he's cooking though. I think that's his strongest campaign technique is when he talks about appliances or pop culture or maybe fast food.
Well, right. It's relatable. Also,
Well, the only problem is that do most people even remember that movie now? I mean, Silence of the Lambs was 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah, it
wasn't
was 1992 or something like that.
You could do the "Hello, Clarice" line in 2004, and everyone would just go off, and it'd be hilarious. But it really is faded.
It really right.
Now, the interesting thing about that clip from New Jersey is that you didn't hear a huge reaction to his Hannibal Lecter story. And here he is out in front of the courtroom.
Wait, do we know where in New Jersey that was? Oh, Wildwood? That makes sense.
Oh, wait, was there more to that clip?
There's the clip that he's talking about.
Okay, let's see. So here he is at the courthouse. Wait, what?
He's talking about the crowd size at the rally here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, here he is. Okay.
If some of these wackos came along, these liberal singers that actually vote for me, they all vote for me. They say, oh, Trump, I don't know. Like Bruce Springsteen. We have a much bigger crowd than Bruce Springsteen, right? Much bigger. I'm sure he's a nice guy. How about Chris Christie? You say, I love Bruce Springsteen. And then they used to throw him out of the concert.
Yeah, because Bruce Springsteen is a noted liberal Democrat, and that's also a big part of his lyrics. He talks about
here
working
is
person.
Donald Trump again at the courtroom now complaining about this, and then we'll look at a clip of his crowd there, and then we'll compare it to a Springsteen show. We'll see if it's a bigger crowd in New Jersey than Springsteen would get. But here he is at the courthouse complaining about this.
Is there anything he could say that could put you in jeopardy?
So thank you very much. Greatly appreciate you being here. The New York Times just came out with a poll that shows us leading everywhere by a lot. This is the cover story, and I think you'll find it very interesting, but I'm sure you've all read it. Leading in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, Georgia, and Nevada. Nevada, we are leading actually by 12 points.
pause it for 1 second. In the background there, you can see J.D. Vance is videotaping. He's so excited to be there.
There's Tommy Tuberville.
And Tommy Tuberville is there. And
Is that Malio Stock Tips back there? Yes. Yeah, there we go.
What's his name? Our boy
Boris Epstein.
Boris Epstein.
Boris Epstein, yeah. But he's bringing his Senate sock puppets there. Everybody's trying to kiss his ass to try and become vice president.
And you see how his kind of PR savant attitude just like still can never leave him, because he's basically reading these poll numbers from the New York Times Siena poll as a press release.
Oh, I mean, it's actually not a bad. It's a smart.
No, I get it. That's the one thing he's good at.
Generally a Democrat state. I think we're probably leading in New Jersey. We had a rally, over 100,000 people this weekend. A lot of the mainstream media didn't want to say how many people. They didn't want to cover it. But in fact, I don't think anybody did. I hear the crowd was not shown by the mainstream media, which is what they tell me, but that's par for the course. A couple of polls that just came out. Fareed Zakaria, no friend of mine. The Trump trial is politically motivated.
Okay, no, let's go. Let's look at the shot of the crowd.
Really can't get over this crowd size thing. This is the first stupid scandal of his actual presidency, was him obsessing about his inauguration crowd size and lying about it.
All right, let's look at this now. I don't know if this is during his speech or what.
A tender-hearted woman saw a poor, half-frozen snake. His pretty colored skin had been all frosted with the dew. Poor thing, she sighed.
Yeah, they didn't 100,000.
That doesn't look like 100,000. But here is a Bruce Springsteen concert, and let's not play too much of the sound. This looks more like 100,000 people. Here it is. Yeah. That's MetLife.
At MetLife,
oh,
yeah.
Is that even 100,000 at MetLife?
That might be
It
like
goes up to
80, 70.
81.
Yeah.
Oh, it goes up to 81. It's like, and they have like the back quarter up. So that's probably like 50, 60,000 people.
No, but well, yeah, that's true, I guess. I was going to say maybe even more than 80 because of the...
But he sold it out
kid on
3
the
days in a
field.
row.
He sold out... Yeah.
Well, I guess my point is, though, is that when I'm comparing those two crowd sizes, it looks like there may have been 8,000 people there, maybe, to see Trump. Maybe
I think
closer
that's
to
generous,
like
5.
maybe 600 to 700. I don't know. It doesn't look like that much now in retrospect.
This was a Springsteen crowd in Gothenburg in Sweden, also.
Yeah, that's just
Well-
a slightly more packed crowd.
Yeah, media won't tell you that. Media never tells you what.
Trump should do
true
3
numbers.
straight rallies in the same place and see how the third one goes.
Oh, yes. Just, that's the scientific
Like,
method.
he might literally like bore his own audience.
I mean, what was he even talking about as they panned to the crowd size? Poor things?
He was reading the snake poem that he reads basically at every
Oh.
rally, which is basically like, you knew who I was when you let me in the door. It's like, it's sort of like...
He does that all the time.
Oh, he does? Gosh.
Yeah,
He's been doing that for a long
great
time.
message.
It's like his parlor trick.
Which of these clips should we do here? Should we do 11 or 13? Which one is more?
Yeah, let's do that. It's always
Okay.
fun.
So Tim Pool had had Taylor Marshall. This is Dr. Taylor Marshall is I guess a Christian podcaster. Also is there is the Timcast contributor Hannah Claire Brimelow.
Okay.
And Tim's got a new skateboard that he's showing everybody.
Yeah, is the set upgraded? Lighting looks better.
Did look a little different than like when you were on, Emma. I feel like there has been slight
Maybe they
retro.
renovated.
The
amplifier.
Wasn't he going to quit this show, this episode? Wasn't he complaining that in real life was too difficult? Why is he bothering people putting grease down his drain? He doesn't. But all right, here we go.
About this a little bit the other day. As much as there's a lot of people on the left and the right trying to deny it, the anti-Semitism bill absolutely would make it a discriminatory offense under the 1964 Civil Rights Act to claim that Jews killed Jesus. Are you familiar with this?
Oh, yes.
So there's a lot of people coming out and saying, no, you're exaggerating. It's not illegal. That's not what they're saying. No,
Pause
hold
it.
on.
I love the fact that that Tim Pool is going to make the argument that the rest of the bill is fine, except for the fact that you won't be able to say that Jesus killed Jews killed Jesus. Now, I suspect that you probably could say that, but what they really are is the issue here is that you're equating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. And, like, even like this anti-Zionism, I had this conversation with the other day, like, there's anti-Zionism is, it seems to me, a creation of Zionists, because there's another word for anti-Zionism, and that is like, I believe in democracy. Or I just believe that you shouldn't like self-determination, that you shouldn't be oppressing people and preventing them from having any autonomy. But as soon as it becomes anti-Zionism, it's like, it becomes like, I hold a special set of beliefs that are unique to Zionists. No, I just have a set of beliefs that I believe that Zionism runs afoul of. And the belief is not terribly controversial. It is one where it's pro-democratic, right? Period. I don't know if Tim Pool has ever complained about the 26 states, is it in the country, where you can't get a government contract if you are in any way participate in like BDS or any type of boycott of Israel.
Yep.
You can't, you're a speech therapist. You're working with kids who have trouble speaking or have special needs. You can't have that job if you've participated in any type of boycott of Israel.
That literally happened in Texas.
I imagine that Tim Pool has not weighed in on that, but
he's not even making that argument, though. I mean, well, I guess he is making an argument about this specific free speech. And when he says you can't even say that the Jews killed Jesus, that's a wink and a nod to a few people in the audience that want to say more things about Jews outside of the Jesus killing part. It's just like, you can't say the bad things about Jews, which is what we want to say.
He also knows it's unpopular and that he needs to take a position against it that isn't in line with the protesters.
That's my point there, is that like, he knows it's they're against it on the right, so he's going to take a position about it being sort of he's got to find the position.
Surprise! It's attack on us again, the reactionaries.
And this is what Marjorie Taylor Greene said. We played that clip last week. So he's just saying Marjorie, the liberal fence sitter Tim Pool.
They found a way.
Is aligned with MTG.
No, you're exaggerating. It's not illegal. That's not what they're saying. No, hold on. The anti-Semitism bill got passed, but we don't know if it'll make it to the Senate. Donald Trump in 2019 signed an executive order instructing federal agencies to operate under the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which includes, as an example, statements like Jews killed Jesus. I'm not saying they did, but it's in the Bible they did. It's in the Bible numerous times, and it's not, and then people try to argue, no, it's in the Bible that they demanded of Pontius to do it. No, it's in the Bible that Pontius says, I will not have this man's blood on my hands. And then the people scream back to him, it will be on our hands and our children. That's in the Bible. So if you believe in the Bible and you preach the Bible and someone is in some way discriminated against, you have now committed a crime under the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which I believe is a civil violation. You get sued and you lose. So no, you're not going to go to jail for it. Anyone's allowed to go on a street corner and say the most vile things. Like, I'm not even talking about the Bible. I'm saying, like, then go out and be racist, whatever. You can't go to jail for that. But if you kick someone out of a store while holding up a sign that says something overtly racist, they're going to sue you under Title VI, and they're going to win. Now, putting up a Bible passage, like the one of Pontius saying, I will not have this man's blood on my hands. Imagine you had that in your restaurant, denied service to a guy for some arbitrary reason, like he wasn't wearing shoes. And then he says, you know what? Well, I was Jewish, and he had a thing on.
Let me just explain what arbitrary means. Arbitrary means something that has absolutely no basis, no reason for it. It's just sort of whimsical. When you deny service to someone for no shoes, you're actually following the health code, and that would be a perfect defense. Exactly. Like if they came in and said, like, oh, you have this sign here, and you denied me food. And my defense was like, well, he was not wearing shoes. They would go, oh, okay, dismissed, summarily dismissed.
But he has to come up with a fake kind of, I guess, basically pretext for it, because then otherwise he'd have to acknowledge that actually anti-discrimination happens to a lot of different people in places of business, and that's why we need these kinds of laws.
It's also weird, too. Like in this instance, I think what he's really wants is that you were holding the sign as you came in to get the food, and they denied service to you because of the sign. But go ahead.
He wasn't wearing shoes. And then he says, you know what? Well, I was Jewish, and he had a thing on the sign blaming Jews for killing Jesus. That's why they kicked him out. You will get sued. You will lose.
Yeah. I mean, in Texas, you know what Dairy Queen is?
Yep. Oh, of course.
Okay. Every Dairy Queen in Texas where I live has a Bible on the counter. Do y'all have that?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. What?
And there's a highlighter, and it always says highlight your favorite verse. So while you're waiting to order, you go to the Bible, you open it up, and you highlight your favorite. It's just
This did not happen in New England when I was growing up.
This is Texas Dairy Queen. Texas
Wow.
Dairy Queen. But I mean, technically, it might not be printed that you have Acts 10 or 2 Thessalonians or any of these verses, but having a Bible present in the store, someone could say that's anti-Semitic. And even look, it's opened up here and someone highlighted this.
Nonsense.
And I didn't get and so
And I didn't get served, and it could be
something stupid.
The ice cream maker wasn't working,
Right.
and then they say no. You look at what happened in Colorado.
The ice cream
The
maker
baker who gets sued over and over and over again. It's opening a door that should not be open. But I will also stress, oh boy, does that bill ban the Quran and the Hadith. Like, it's one thing for the Bible to be like, and Pontius said, I will not have the blood of this man in my hands. And they yelled back, it will be on the hands of us and our children. It's another thing in the Hadith where it says the hour will not come until the servants of Allah hunt down the Jews, and the rocks and the trees will scream, O servants of Allah, there is a Jew hiding behind me, come kill him. That's crazy.
But
I am 100% sure that these religious books will not be outlawed. That if you really want to have a Bible or a Quran,
this is just like Jordan Peterson saying, I'm going to be put into the gulag for misgendering people.
Yeah, it's hysterical. And also, I'm pretty sure for the foreseeable future, the Christianity is going to be okay in this country.
well, that's the amazing thing is that they're somehow like this is about sort of centering themselves and making it about an attack on them. When in fact, I mean, the real problem here is that that standard that they're adopting has been one that has been manipulated to defend Israel from critique, not to defend Jews from the charge that 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, they killed Jesus.
Don't worry, Tim. You'll be able to say anti-Semitism. They'll all be able to be anti-Semitic. It won't be a problem if this law were to get adopted. It would be if you were anti-Zionist. That's what it would be a problem.
It's wild the way that we talk about not wanting to frame this as a fight between religions going back thousands of years. And instead look at the imperial and sort of global nation sort of impacts of it. The Jews killed Jesus thing is just an ancient example of that because, we don't talk about the Roman Empire or anything like that. It's just like the Jews killed them.
Okay, let's go to the IMs. Ryan from Cali. Okay, the most basic tenet of Christianity, we all killed Jesus. He died for our sins. It's like when Black Widow died, Avengers Endgame, Tim, unless you're a follower of the Aryan heresy or something. The devil. I'm going to highlight all the chapters about me. Oh, wait. Ismish. My son's in 8th grade. Let me know that a teacher played PragerU video in class Friday. Luckily, he's smart enough to ignore whatever it was saying. Jesus. We're so screwed. We're so screwed.
Yeah, get majority report homeschool started up.
Ostentatious. Yeah, I live here in Austin. That's BS. I have a Dairy Queen right up my street. There's no Bible on the counter. Dark Soul 9669. The ice cream maker not working is anti-Semitic. McDonald's is out of business due to a lot of lawsuits, folks.
No, he's saying that people will just look for an excuse to like attack them for Christianity if they need one. So like they wouldn't have sued you for the Bible, but the ice cream machine, which at Dairy Queen, you probably want the ice cream machine working.
Chris Burdick, my shop is protected by a sign that says no blood on hands, no service. That's good. New Jersey state worker. Don't worry, Emma. I turned 32 and just last week started my Roth IRA. It's a state provided one. I also have a pension, so there's that. It's nice being a state worker for things like this. Danny Trejo and Riggle are surprising for how popular they are in normal circumstances. Dragon 607 number calling to say how it's pissed at being protested in the aughts of You Get to Me. Obviously changed my mind shortly after. Not sure I follow that, but we'll take calls tomorrow. Trump-Biden reversal. Hey, Sam, sorry to bring up Trump versus Biden again, but clearly Biden is not scared of his base anymore. He knows that thanks to so-called lesser of evils, of two evils logic, likes of you will still ask people to vote for him eventually. In best case scenario, he gets a ceasefire deal done so late in the game that several hundreds of thousands are already dead. Give me a reason why the likes of me shouldn't campaign and declare that we won't be voting for Biden to put fear of God in him. Give you a reason why likes of you
That's the thing, is it's not that we say who cares about, like, vote for what you want if you're in a swing state or whatever. It's that you're mad at us for not saying don't vote for Biden and throw the election for that. And I just don't, like, if you want to do that, go ahead. But why do you, like, I don't agree with that as a wise choice.
I mean, I think, look, the thing that I think is good about the protests at these universities is, you know, I think it would be good if they divested, but I don't think it's going to have a dramatic impact. I don't think there's that much divestment. I don't think the divestment at the college universities is really going to impact Israel in the way that it might have, you know, even symbolically in terms of South Africa. But let's say they did. I think the value still of the protests is more to signify to the Biden campaign that they're in trouble in terms of youth voters. I'm not even sure that as a first order measure that they are in trouble in that respect. So I have no problem with, in fact, encourage like the idea of like, you know, protests that make the Biden campaign and administration scared about reelection. But yes, you're right. When we get closer to the election, I imagine there's going to be a lot of opportunities for me to say, like, if you're in a swing state, you should vote for Biden. Because the bottom line is, I do not see voting as a mode of self-expression. I do not believe that voting is an effective tool to punish people. I do not believe that people learn lessons, that political parties learn lessons from when they lose elections in that way.
We know they didn't. With Hillary.
No.
They just blamed Russia and the left.
I mean,
I talked to two activists from New Jersey about the uncommitted campaign, and it's a contradiction created by the two-party system where he deserves to lose this because of supporting this, and also him being in office compared to a Republican makes the lessons for the activists that are trying to get people to move against supporting Israel in this country. It's a much clearer lesson because Democrats aren't saying, oh, actually, we'd actually be doing a little bit better than what Trump is doing right now, which is the main difference. I don't think you can really say Biden's going to be better than Trump on this, but it's clear that his coalition is more against it than Trump's would be.
Yeah, I mean that's the bottom line. There's no one trying to discipline Donald Trump on being less
pro-Israel.
Pro-Israel. You know, I think if you, I certainly can understand people who, you know, can't bring themselves to vote for Joe Biden. But again, I don't think that's what voting is about. And, you know, it's one thing to say, like, I personally can't do it, whatever. Okay. It's another to advocate that others don't. And to do anything other than say, I can't do it because from an emotional standpoint, it's just too painful for me to do it. To pretend that not voting for him is a political act, I think, is where it's really an issue.
And I just think like people can say things like I see in chat, a vote for Biden is a vote for genocide. I think there's a way that's true. And I also think that there's a way that voting for Lincoln was a vote for genocide too. When you look at what happened in Dakota, I think that is what happens when you decide you are going to try to have any influence at all in who runs this country, which is a bloodletter.
Paying your taxes is also participating in enabling a genocide.
Yep.
I mean, that's just the reality of it.
We just reject the moral standpoint as too limited for, I mean, maybe as an individual, people want to operate that way. We have a bigger scope of responsibility here as people who comment on politics widely than individual moralistic position. And it's just not compelling, especially after 10 years of talking about this, frankly.
Okay, a couple more IMs. Is there another clip that we should do? Oh, no, wait. It's 10:30. Oh, Jesus. All right, we're late. All right, I'm going to read 6 more IMs. Idil, have you heard of Dhruv Rathi, an Indian YouTuber with 20 million subscribers? He makes a lot of videos criticizing the BJP, the fascist party that rules India. You should let your audience know about him.
What's his name?
I'll look it up and.
Well, I've been hoping to have someone maybe on a Thursday on India, so I.
This might be a good guest.
Copy paste to me.
Back to the IMs. I'll give you that after the show.
Oh, I see it.
Lou Diamond. That's funny that this cartoon is all anti-of, but has subtitles. Tom from Yakubia. Sam, hearing Kathy Hochul tell us black kids in the Bronx can't spell the word computer, I was wondering if she and Bill O'Reilly have ever shared notes on Sylvia's and Harlem's. Give me more iced tea, mother effer. Oh, that was a funny clip.
mean, that her saying anything about the computers is one thing. It's in the context of her traveling out to California for some insider traders foundation to talk about how kids need AI and that's what's going to stop educational discrepancies. It's a super sick world we live in.
Listener from Compton. I used to listen to Adam Carolla's podcast. Every guest voice on his animation has also been a repeat guest of his podcast. I've wondered if he just has him step into a booth and say some lines at his studio after doing the podcast.
Tricking them into doing voice acting.
Yeah, get them in the podcast to say lines.
Oh, can you repeat this?
Really cool. Breaking. Pentagon official quits in protest of U.S. support of Israel. Yep, we mentioned that earlier. Registered Voiter. Help, I keep getting PragerU ads during your stream. The deep state is coming.
We'll take that money.
3 more. Jimothy. The venue at Wildwood, New Jersey had a 20,000 person capacity as quoted by the organizer for the rally. And the final IM of the day honks me off. Roth IRAs are funded with post-tax income. Standard IRAs are funded with pre-tax income. Roth IRAs aren't taxed at withdrawal, whereas standard IRAs are.
Thank you.
Folks, see you. Oh, Matt, Bradley, Emma, great job today. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive.